A man with a bruised face enters the police station. The police ask him who he is and what happened to him. He replies, "I am Hao Homi and I have killed someone." 3 years later, an accident occurs on the street, resulting in a fatality. The police arrive at the scene, and the officer in charge of the case is a woman named Inspector Look-Yun-san. The crash car is found, but the driver's body is discovered outside the vehicle. Inside the car, traces of drugs are found. The victim's entire body is covered in bruises and wounds caused by punches. The police conclude that the victim was beaten to death. Hao Homi, while in prison, is giving his friend a massage when a prison gang approaches them, threatening them and demanding they leave the area. Hao Homi's friend resists, but Hao Homi forcibly pulls his friend away. At this moment, the television broadcasts the news of the accident. When Hao Homi sees the report, he is surprised. He goes to a guard and asks for permission to make a call, but the guard refuses. Despite Hao Homi's insistence, the prison guard ignores him. Hao Homi then approaches another guard and says he wants to see Inspector Look to assist in the accident investigation, but the guard mocks him and tells him to leave. Subsequently, Hao Homi goes to confront the prison gang, fighting them and beating them all up. Eventually, the prison guards detain him, but he keeps repeating to himself that he wants to see Inspector Look-Yun-san. Inspector Look-Yun-san visits Hao Homi and asks the prison warden about him. The warden describes Hao Homi as a calm and disciplined individual who hasn't had any altercations during his 3 years in prison. But yesterday, he inexplicably beat up several people. The inspector asks how many people. The warden responds, 17 people. Hao Homi tells the police that they need his help because he has fought the killer before. The police ask if he knows the murderer. Hao Homi replies that he doesn't know him personally, but he understands his mindset and knows that he will kill again. The police question how Hao Homi knows this, and he explains that in normal fights, people don't kill each other. If it were a matter of revenge, the killer would have used a weapon. But if someone kills with their bare hands, it means they intend to slaughter. Hao Homi continues, saying he knows the killer's plan and that if they release him from prison, he can assist them. The inspector responds, "Because you know Kung Fu, you think you can help me?" She say that she has solved many cases without using Kung Fu and insists they don't need his martial arts skills. As the inspector prepares to leave the prison cell, Hao Homi loudly calls out the names of the killer's next targets, warning that one of them will soon be murdered. The inspector orders her subordinates to gather information on the names Hao Homi mentioned. The killer selects his next target, a man named King Yu, a former Asian champion. The killer enters King Yu's workshop, introduces himself as Fong Yusa, and states that he has come to fight him to the death. However, King Yu dismisses him, telling him to leave. The killer forces King Yu into a fight. They battle fiercely. And the killer emerges victorious, killing King Yu and leaving behind a signature mark. Meanwhile, the police are investigating the names Hao Homi provided. They discover that all of them are innocent individuals. They also learn that Hao Homi was once a martial arts master with many students. But during a duel, he killed someone and was sentenced to 5 years in prison. While conducting their investigation, they receive news that a person named King Yu has been murdered. The inspector visits Hao Homi and informs him of King Yu's death. Hao Homi pleads to be released so he can help, warning that more people will die otherwise. The killer selects his third target, Master Wang Qi. Meanwhile, Hao Homi is temporarily released from prison. The inspector asks Hao Homi how he can help, and Hao Homi explains that the killer murders in the order of martial arts styles, fighting masters of each style to the death. First boxing, then kicking techniques, followed by grappling, weapons, and finally internal energy. The inspector asks about the next target, and Hao Homi provides Wang Qi's address. However, before the police can arrive, the killer confronts and kills Wang Qi. As the police investigate the crime scene, the killer reveals himself to Haohomi. Haohomi chases after him, but the killer escapes. Unable to catch him, Haohomi leaves for another city to visit a friend, and the police lose track of him. Upon arriving in the city, Haohomi sees his friend. She slaps him. However, Haohomi embraces his friend and apologizing for a past mistake. They enter the martial arts school together. Haohomi apologizes to his former master for his past mistake. His friend lifts him up and puts a bracelet on his wrist to control his temper. While searching through his friend's belongings, Haohomi discovers a symbol left by the killer. He asks his friend about it, and she explains that 3 months ago, a 30-year-old man visited and asked him to give the item to Haohomi. His friend asks if something has happened, and Haohomi reassures him, saying he is cooperating with the police and the item is related to the case. Haohomi and his friend meet a man named Phúc Ming and inquire about the object. Phúc Ming explains that the item is called the Swallow's Blade. In the past, kings would give this object to the loser as a gesture of consolation. The authentic version is made of silver and gold, but the one they have is a counterfeit. Phúc Ming asks Haohomi why he is gathering information about it, and Haohomi replies that a serial killer leaves this symbol after every murder. Another man sitting nearby says that 6 years ago, he fought someone, lost the match, and was given this metal swallow as a gift. Haohomi asks for the man's address, and the man replies that he lives with his wife in the Sukhoi Valley. Haohomi immediately contacts Inspector Look, informing him that he has found the killer's address. The police quickly enter the area and surround the killer's hideout. However, the killer is not there. The homeowner tells the inspector that the man's name is Fong Yusa and that he lived there with his wife, who had cancer. He always practiced martial arts. The homeowner adds, "One day, I saw him on the roof applying white powder to his skin." Haohomi says that it's sea salt. He did it to toughen his skin and withstand more blows. They find writing on the wall explaining that he wants to fight all kung fu masters and become the #1. Haohomi wants to go with the police, but his friend refuses to let him go alone and asks Haohomi to take him along. Haohomi declines, saying it's too dangerous, and promises to return after the killer is caught. However, the inspector, fearing Haohomi might escape again, allows his friend to accompany them. The inspector asks Haohomi about the next target. Haohomi says it's Chan Pak Wong, a sword master and likely the next target. The police quickly surround the area and wait for the killer. Chan Pak Wong brings them food and says that 6 years ago, he had an accident and can no longer fight. Haohomi asks who runs the school, and he replies that his senior disciple manages it. Meanwhile, the killer approaches the senior disciple. He tells him, "You are a master of weapons, but you've become a clown. It's time to show your skills." He challenges him to a fight to the death. They duel, and once again, the killer emerges victorious. Once again, the police arrive too late. The inspector asks Haohomi why a martial artist would brutally kill others. Haohomi replies, "He's a mad martial artist." The inspector says, "You also killed someone." Haohomi responds, "But I went to prison." The police chief contacts the inspector, asking when the case will be solved and how many more people must die. The inspector requests 3 days to arrest the killer. She tells Haohomi that if they can't catch the killer within 3 days, she will be transferred elsewhere, and Haohomi will be sent back to prison. Haohomi promises to do everything he can to catch the killer. While the police are reviewing documents, the killer contacts them and asks to speak to Haohomi. The inspector tells Haohomi to keep him engaged while they locate his position. Haohomi begins talking to the killer. The killer tells Haohomi, "When I saw you, I thought you were top form, but you disappointed me. Maybe I can turn you into top form by killing your loved one. Then you'll be ready to fight." Haohomi becomes angry and tells the killer, "The first person I'll kill is you." Eventually, the police locate the source of the call, but before they can arrive, the killer escapes. The inspector grows suspicious of Haohomi and asks, "Why does the killer know you were in prison and about your love? Why does he know everything about you?" Haohomi replies, "The killer knows all martial artists. Naturally, he knows me." Haohomi asks the inspector to let him visit his friend, and the inspector sends an officer with him, and she orders them to search Haohomi's call history. Eventually, the police investigation yields results. They discover that the killer's grandmother lives in a town called Taiho, and the sea salt the killer used comes from there. The police send a SWAT team to capture the killer. They surround the entire area. The police raid the killer's grandmother's house, but he is not there. After inspecting the house, they learn that the killer's wife recently died, and he may return soon to mourn her. The inspector orders all officers to hide and prepare to arrest him upon sight. Finally, the killer appears and returns for his wife's memorial. The killer believes that humans are stronger without attachments, which is why he killed his own wife with his bare hands. The killer becomes suspicious when he sees the dogs and runs away. The police move in to arrest him. Meanwhile, CCTV footage from the prison reveals that the killer visited Ha'ohomi in prison. The police point their guns at Ha'ohomi, intending to arrest him, and Ha'ohomi realizes his friend has acted alone and wants to fight the killer by himself. He takes the police officer's gun and escapes to help his friend. The inspector orders all officers to arrest Ha'ohomi, suspecting he might be an accomplice. Meanwhile, Ha'ohomi's friend picks up the ashes of the killer's wife and says, "If you want your wife's ashes, you must stop harming Ha'ohomi." The killer replies, "After your death, Ha'ohomi will become stronger." He fights and defeats him, and takes his wife's ashes and escapes, killing several police officers in the process. When Ha'ohomi enters the room and sees his injured love, he becomes angry and upset. He wants to fight the killer, but his love stops him. However, Ha'ohomi does not relent and engages the killer in battle. During the fight, the container holding the killer's wife's ashes breaks. The killer throws both himself and Ha'ohomi into the sea. The killer attacks one of the police boats, kills the officer, steals their boat, and escapes. The inspector pursues him. During the chase, the police block his path with their boats. The killer rams his boat into theirs and escapes. Through the wireless communication, Ha'ohomi tells the inspector, "I'm not working with the killer. He visited me in prison, admired me, and asked me to fight him after defeating all the martial arts masters." The inspector asks why Ha'ohomi didn't mention this earlier. Ha'ohomi replies, "If I had told you, you wouldn't have released me. The killer threatened to kill Sing-in if I didn't cooperate." And he leaves. Meanwhile, the inspector is removed from the case due to incompetence and failure to arrest the killer. The case is handed over to another inspector. While holding a picture of his beloved, Ha'ohomi talks to himself. Fong Yusa was right. Kung Fu is the art of killing. If I had killed him on that first day, you wouldn't be in this terrible situation now. Before the killer reaches his next target, Ha'ohomi arrives first and switches places with the intended victim. When the killer sees Ha'ohomi, he is astonished. Ha'ohomi tells the killer, "I don't want an easy fight. I'm here to kill you." The killer replies, "Let's fight to the death." A deadly battle ensues between them. Finally, Ha'ohomi defeats Fong Yusa. Fong Yusa surrenders and asks Ha'ohomi to kill him. However, Ha'ohomi looks at the bracelet his love gave him, controls his anger, and decides against killing him. The killer pushes Ha'ohomi toward oncoming trucks. As Ha'ohomi tries to save himself, his clothes get caught and he is injured. The killer seizes the opportunity and attempts to kill him, saying, "Since you didn't kill me, I'll kill you." At that moment, the inspector who had traced their location arrives just in time. She shoots and kills the killer and saving Ha'ohomi. Ha'ohomi is returned to prison, but is later released with the help of the inspector. He marries his love Sing-in as children and expands the martial arts school. Reflecting on his journey, Ha'ohomi says to himself, "To become number one, you must let go of many things, but I prefer to take others' hands and build a happy world together."